Next, we have Vivan Storlund from Finland, and she talks about work as a human value, a challenge to GDP.
My title is Work as a Human Value, a Challenge to GDP. But what I want to talk about is the challenge that GDP poses for which has to do with the later discussion on working change perception of work, and also on the roundtable that Geoff Crocker will have about what economic policies to pursue after the extraordinary measures that were taken during the COVID pandemic. So GDP is a very problematic notion. It was introduced in the 1930s, and ever since then it has been criticized that not measuring what it should measure. And over all these years, it has yes been questioned, and there is one Nobel Prize laureate who in the 70s made a strong case for this, Suomen Kuznets, who pushed the question, more growth for what? And I think this is really more typical than ever today, when we also have to do with so many ecological challenges. It was only in 2009 that a very proper challenge to GDP was presented, and this was by the Commission headed by Joseph Stiglitz, Amartya Sen, and coordinated with by the French economist Fitoussi. And what they say is that instead of looking at production as GDP does, we should look at consumption and households situation. So, the report was measurement of economic performance and social progress. And it really hit a chord, because then afterwards OECD hosted a high-level group that looked further into the proposals that Stiglitz and Fitoussi had made, and they were working for, was it 7 years, to further look further into these proposals. And the very revealing title that this commission or high-level group produced is Beyond GDP, measuring what counts for economic and social performance. This was in 2018. And after that, there has been interesting further work on measuring things other than those that are registered in GDP through with the OECD has a program, Inclusive Growth Project, where they look at growth and inequality. And there has been, and then it is also suggested that we should look at national account surveys instead of only GDP, and some random picks to illustrate this. So in 2018, the value of unpaid household work in Finland corresponded to 36% of GDP. And Daniel Suskind, who has written a book, A World Without Work, in 2020, gives the following figure for the UK, that the combined value of household routines is estimated to count for 800 billion pounds, which is more than 4 times the size of the manufacturing sector. So, I mean, we are here talking about enormous amount of valuable work and value creation that is not registered in the GDP. So it's very frustrating to hear politicians just talk about GDP. And now we have a typical situation, because after the lockdown there has been a great spur in economic activity, and it was the same with the economic meltdown in 2008 when the wheels started turning again. We thought, now we have a good development, but nobody asked what happened to those who became the victims of these of the meltdown and the extraordinary measures. So to look at work in a new way, which is that item of the roundtable discussion we have on transformed working life and civil society. There we need to look at all these activities that are not registered in GDP, and then with the discussion with Geoff Crocker's roundtables on what economic policies to pursue, we should remember also this, that it's not only economic growth, but also the conditions of us ordinary people. And this one more thing. I would like to know to what extent in different countries people talk about all these measures that are all this invisible work that statistics now starting to take account of. How much publicity does this get in relation to the discussions of GDP? This, it would be very good to have a discussion on these questions either now or at a later stage. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Vivan, very much for this enlightening speech.